What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Some big names entering the transfer portal for the Miami Hurricanes. It's a two-way street. Sometimes it gives you players, sometimes you lose players. Zaquan Patterson, safety. Josh Horton, defensive tackle, both out the door. Two guys Miami had high hopes for. Didn't work out. We will get into some of the background on that departure, those departures, what it means, and everything else. Also, basketball, ton of stuff happening there. We'll talk with Peter Rees about basketball. Also going to bring on Seth Cooker, one of the top insiders on Miami football. If you've ever been to practice or any kind of donor event, you've seen Seth in action. So a lot to get to. First, talk about some folks who will go in action for you, and that is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in.
Guys, let me tell you, if D's energy seems a little low right now, it's not because of the transfer portal stuff. He's had a hectic last 20 minutes here.
Oh, yeah, so drawbridge came up, so we had to push back the show. Got stuck for like 15 minutes. And then I try to wear a pink shirt here, switch up the style a little bit. I got to go into the office afterwards, and it screwed up the whole lighting. It just, the flavor of this pink shirt just disrupted all of these expensive cameras. And now I look like I'm in 1973, but that's all right. We'll get through it. We'll class this joint up here with Seth Cooker. Seth, you hop in.
What's up, everybody?
Live from the Hecht. How you doing?
How you doing, Seth?
Doing great. How about you guys?
Doing good, man. I'm, obviously after the spring game, I think kind of always puts a wrap on everything that we've had a chance to see. And look, it's not the finished product yet, as we'll get into here, but feel pretty good about the foundation of where things are at right now. I really do.
Yeah, and look, I mean, obviously the story of the day with the two departures. Let me just kind of give my thoughts on these before we kick it around. Let's start with Zaquan Patterson. Big name, top 75 player out of high school, safety, Chaminade Madonna, someone who's been on the radar since he was a kid, right? A big recruiting win for the Miami Hurricanes over FSU. Very expensive player on top of, big recruit. He was always very physical. He got on the field early, but I think the issue with him, there were several issues. First, you knew coming in that he was more of a box safety and that coverage would be an issue for him. He'd be limited in that way. You hoped he would expand his game. So he had this kind of inherent limitations that you knew going in, but you thought that the strength with the physicality, the athleticism would make up for it. In terms of just kind of doing all the things necessary to be a student athlete at I thought that was a big adjustment for him, more so than some other players. Like you look at his teammate, Jeremiah Smith. It wasn't just the physical tools that Jeremiah Smith brought to the table that allowed him to thrive as a freshman. It was the total package and the commitment to doing all the things necessary to be a student athlete and to succeed, off the field in terms of just doing everything he needed to do. I'm not sure Zaquan was as advanced as a Jeremiah Smith, his teammate, coming in, and that's why the playing time was different than injuries. He didn't play in spring really, played sparingly, was banged up. And I think all those things together, plus the price tag, just made more sense for him to move on elsewhere where he can develop, in a different situation, different role. So, best of luck to him. Loved him coming out of high school. It was super fun to watch. I remember watching him in the nationally televised game Chaminade played against, I believe, a school from D.C., and he was the best player on the field that day. So he's definitely got talent, physical, can do a lot. But, I just don't think it worked out, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Miami's going to take a significant amount of NIL money back, right, with him going out the door, and I think that's going to be used for a transfer portal safety. Seth, I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on our friend Zaquan.
That's 100% what I was told and heard, is that basically, he does have a lot of talent. He might be a great player in another program, but for the bang for the buck, and the match, the way he was fitting into our program, I think they wanted to move in another direction. And like you said, the portal brings you players. It also lets players that maybe you didn't fit quite how you hoped they'd fit to go elsewhere, so he still can have a great career. He's a good kid. But for us, it enables us to use those funds. And I think they're also very happy, by the way, I'm sure you know this, Dee, that with the transfer portals that we brought in for the defensive backs, they're happy with all those guys. They're very happy with all those guys.
Yeah, the corner situation I think is tremendously improved. Safety, you brought in Zechariah Poyser, and that's a keeper. He's going to start. He's
Yep.
more versatile than Zaquan. I think he's just more professional at this stage because the guy's been in. Well, I guess he's 1 year older, but he's played a lot more. Kind of came up through the mud, as the kids say. I got it through the mud, and transferred to or started at Jacksonville State, proved himself there, transferred over to UM already as a proven player who had outplayed his recruiting ranking. So different situations. I think Zaquan, if I'm in the portal as a buyer, he's a guy that I think has a lot of talent. You just got to put him in the right system. And again, these guys all develop at different rates. I just think when you come in with a big price tag and a lot of expectations and it doesn't happen as fast as you like, those players tend to end up in the portal for various reasons. So I think that's a little bit of what happened here with Zaquan.
And D, I mean, look, he wasn't recruited by these defensive backs coaches. That not that he look. There's a lot of players like that, right? That's not the end all be all, but I think that's just another contributing factor. And it's not. I think it's comfort level on the player side too, right? This is a two-way street here. And look, I think, like you said, Seth could be a good player in the right fit, in the right system for him. I think his comments were pretty classy on the way out. Had said it was nothing to do with Mario or the coaches. So nice to see that in this era where there's so much of stuff on the way out that just gets out that is kind of ugly. So we didn't see that, but yeah, I think maybe a bit of a good sign. Not that they weren't going to go to the portal already for safety, but I think a good sign for guys like Dylan Day and Amari Wallace, like people in the comments have said.
Devon Mayfield saying, why recruit a kid and don't give him a chance? Miami acts like they're national champs. Give the guy who committed to your school a chance. Believe me, no one wanted Zaquan Patterson to play last year more than Miami. You saw him on the field, for a very critical third down against Georgia Tech, which wasn't the reason we didn't make the playoffs, but it was one of the plays that was probably, if you had a top 5 plays, that why is Miami not in the playoff? He was on the field for that, and it didn't go our way. True freshman, those things are going to happen. But I think, again, it's he wasn't there in spring.
Yeah,
so
new coaches and wasn't there in spring. It was the combo that was, I think that's tough there. He's there in spring, doesn't have a chance to really get on the field with those coaches. It's a tough, I think that's a tough proposition for a guy who didn't play as much as he wanted last year, comes in, is not able to get out there. And then he himself probably feels like he's behind the 8 ball heading into the season. And now he goes to a new place. He's going to have to prove himself there also. But that's what I would think it is from the player side as well.
Yeah. And listen, when you watch the NFL draft, you see a lot of guys that it did not work out at their first stop. And sometimes it's usually a combination of things, right? So I don't think this is a situation that you forget about Zaquan Patterson, right? And you think, and he's not going to make it. This guy can go to another spot and make it happen. But it didn't happen at Miami, and Miami wanted it to happen. I mean, Miami invested a lot in him, right? So it's not like Miami invested in him for show. They wanted him to play and be the safety. They need safeties. They're going to have to get a safety now. But it just did not work out for a variety of reasons. And this is college football in 2025. I think Zaquan Patterson has a chance to go to a school where he's going to play, hopefully continue, use what he learned this year, continue to build on that, get healthy, and do what he can, because he is a very, very talented player, a box safety with speed and with some instincts for the game.
So if I could add to that, while I'm all in on player development and giving players a chance, in our day and age of college football, it's obviously more similar to professional. And in this situation, we brought in a player at a high price, and we were able, unlike the NFL, you hire, you take a free agent, it's going to 7-year deal, whatever it is, for big money, and they don't all work out either. But you're stuck in that 7-year deal. In this particular case, he came in, and I don't think that we don't really have the time, because you're talking, it was big dollars, and the way the team evaluated is that we can do more with who we have and bring in, and let the guy, instead of maybe he's going to succeed in Miami, let him take the opportunity to get playing time, to go to a better fit for him and utilize his talents than make him sit and wait 3 years. He doesn't want to sit 3 years either. He wants to play. So it's kind of a bunch of different things. It's not that we are giving up on a guy. We're also helping the guy. He might be All-American somewhere else, but here he wasn't on that path yet. And it's not necessarily a knock on the coaching staff, because there's so many things that are going on. Like you said, no spring, new coaching staff. One of the things these coaches have worked on, which he missed, is every practice is a drill, communications drill. I have never seen us do that. He hasn't been a part of that. So he's behind the 8 ball. But going somewhere else where maybe they have a different, system, he has the athletic ability. He's probably going to do very well somewhere. It just didn't fit. It didn't work here, and we were able to get out of it. He's going to be happy. We're going to be happy, and I really do think it's a win-win.
Sorry, I've been scrambling here. Like Canes Hoops made a hire official, guys. We'll get into it later. But Charlton Young has been hired by Miami. It's been announced. We mentioned it last week. D is a possibility. We got some more football stuff to get into, but it's a pretty significant hire.
Yeah, Pete, get that rolling here. That's important. We talked about that before the show, actually. So
yeah,
that worked out.
I was actually getting ready to post something about it, but Canes Hoops official account scooped me. What can I say?
A great point by Andrew here. It's a new era when guys are getting paid. The adjustment period and leash gets shorter on both sides. I think that's right. I mean, Zaquan Patterson is making starter money, and he is not in line to start this year. So, that's something to keep an eye on. You got similar comments here from Rob. Question from Devon. He's saying, well, he was questioning why he didn't play, and he's saying, who's developed here? I mean, I'd say OJ Frederic developed pretty good. The guy started as a true freshman, was a freshman All-America. That's just in the defensive backfield. Now you have new defensive backfield coaches, but those guys at their prior stops developed quite a few players. So it's not like Etheridge and Harris don't have a good reputation for development on their own, multiple pros on their resume. You look on just look at the defensive side of the ball, right? So on the defensive line, Armando Blunt is scheduled to play a lot, right? He's in line to play a lot. Justin Scott's in line to start. Marquise Lightfoot's in line to play a lot. Hayden Lowe's in line to play a lot. So you're seeing guys on defense that are in a similar situation in line to play a lot. And when you go look at Zaquan, it just wasn't the same trajectory for a lot of reasons, and injuries had to do with that as well. He just didn't, this was a big spring for him and he wasn't there. But I think the fact that you have new coaches who, like you mentioned, Seth, they came in, they evaluated what we have, and it looks like we're going in the transfer portal direction. I think you got to those guys got fresh eyes, and they know what it looks like. They've been around some pretty good DBs. So I think this is going to be a win-win. It's going to be a win for Miami, assuming they can acquire a high-caliber safety in the portal who has experience. It can also give you some of that physicality you hope to get from Zaquan, plus a win for Zaquan where he can find a place to play and develop and be one of the many, many, many defensive players in general that don't work out at their first stop, have a high recruiting ranking, go somewhere else, and then materialize and live up to that recruiting ranking. We see it every time. Go watch the NFL draft, particularly second, third, fourth, fifth rounds. You'll see a lot of guys who are transfers who were highly rated out of high school and then ultimately got drafted close to where their rating was. And it wasn't a smooth shot. There were ups and downs. So hopefully for Zaquan, that's what we're looking at here. Another one here that we should talk about, Josh Horton, defensive tackle from Atlanta, Georgia. I think he ended up as a 4-star, was a riser as a senior, kind of a late blooming prospect. Miami flipped him from North Carolina. Really, really liked him coming in. He was they were excited to get him. He was definitely a riser. I was excited about him. He made a ton of plays as a senior. Just seeing him in practice, the guy looked absolutely what you want a defensive tackle to look like. The problem was, and Seth knows this because he's at practice as well, most of the time he was off there to the side doing rehab. So I think with Horton, even more so than Patterson, you were talking about somebody who just, due to injuries, was unable to really perform at the level that we needed him to perform.
Yeah, and look, he was a guy that we got excited about, I think, multiple times here. And at the same token, you didn't hear us say much about him this spring because it was just, I think, a lot of the same stuff that's held him back to this point. Now, we said it. There's only so many of those guys walking around with that size and athletic ability. So probably was afforded, more opportunities. And when I say more opportunities, I'm not saying he was like a bad kid or anything, but I'm just saying like more opportunities in terms of like keeping him on the roster, essentially, not pushing him out the door, because you always said if that light ever went off, you really could have something there. And he's that body type that you're potentially, wanting to add maybe in the portal. If they do bring someone in there, it's that sort of body type, which you wouldn't have had to go that route if everything was, where you wanted it to be with him. So another guy that hoping that he, makes the best of whatever his next situation is, but for whatever reason, just did not work out here.
Yeah, Seth, what are your thoughts on Horton? I know you've seen him like I have,
Just
looking perfect on the sideline.
he looks like a specimen, but he's just not on the field because he's banged up, whatever it might be. He just hardly played. Even in practice, it just was hardly out there. And you can't take up a spot, especially when the coaches think we're close. They really honestly feel we're close. And so you got to fill that cupboard in the way that you think that the team's going to perform at its best. And again, he's a good kid, actually. He just didn't play enough. Take the spot and give it to someone that hopefully that's going to play.
Yep. And comment here from Dan Maduri saying, we had Chris Johnson, let him walk, and then word out of campus, we need an RB3. We wanted Chris Johnson around, just like we wanted A.J. Allen around. A.J. Allen's in line to start at FIU. Chris Johnson, I'm sure, is going to play a huge role at SMU. Jordan Lyle, Mark Fletcher in line to get the most carries for the Miami Hurricanes. And I think if you are Chris Johnson from Broward County and you two guys you know and have known are ahead of you, and they're going to play a lot, I think he wanted just more opportunity. I don't think it was like Miami saying, hey, we don't want you, right? We want to have a thin running back depth chart behind Fletcher and Lyle. Miami would love to have what we had last year with all these running backs ready to play. The problem is those guys want to play, so they leave. And it's hard to recruit guys as depth from the portal. I think in retrospect, maybe take a second running back out of high school, so that way you have just more there. And those guys are, it's like it's easier to recruit a high school running back than a portal running back if you have two starters for, a ton of reasons, just timing, the fact that, you're not trying to entice them to leave a situation where they could potentially start. So I think Miami wanted Chris Johnson. I think I personally, and I've said this on the show a million times, I think Chris Johnson's going to do very, very well at SMU. His speed, the game will slow down, and then his speed is going to play up. I think that system fits him. So I'm a Chris Johnson fan, but I think for many reasons, it just didn't work out. But we'll see. Running back 3, I think Lofton's going to have a big role in that. I think Pringle and Chris Wheatley-Humphrey showed enough in spring that you feel good about them, at least as smaller guys that can get it done. Chris Wheatley-Humphrey's put on some weight as well. But going back to Horton, similar to Zaquan, you got to have to replace him in the portal. Zaquan's going to be – that money's going to go to, I think, a starting caliber safety. It's my prediction. We'll see. I'll be dropping the bank later on this week with absolute latest on the portal. I think a starting caliber safety that if one jumps in the portal, you're going to pair him with Poyser. And then with Horton, you would have loved for him to be your 4th defensive tackle this year with Scott, Blay, and Moten. That's not going to happen. Dante Simpson looks really, really good, but young. There's some other guys in the mix, Artavius Jones flashes, etc. But I think you want just some veteran depth there. So I think you see a 4th defensive tackle in the portal to replace the role that probably should have been filled by Horton if he was healthier, if he was more consistent.
Yeah, it's a tough. It's kind of like running back in a sense that you're telling a guy you're probably coming in as the 3rd or 4th guy at that spot, so you'll be a rotational piece. So how many players are willing to do that? Now, we've said this before. Are there unforeseen circumstances where guys become available that you maybe weren't expecting to? Of course, I don't see that happening at D tackle. It's a very, very big ticket item, as you say, D. But that's the tough thing, because people, every time we talk about this, say, well, don't get guys like we've grabbed the last few years that don't necessarily fit the size that you're looking for. That's the tough thing about this position, man. There's only so many guys with that big time ability that you can go get. Do you maybe have to take a guy like an Anthony Campbell, right, who limited in terms of production at his previous stop, but you say, man, we've got a really big body here to work with that could potentially provide us something in a pinch. I would think it'd be more on that side of things, D.
Yeah, I agree with you. just a veteran body. The good thing with defensive tackle is, you're going to play, right? Because of the rotation. So whoever we get as that fourth defensive tackle is going to play. So even if they're not the starter, they know they're going to get some opportunities, and they feel confident about that. Negative is you're going to have to pay for it. I know they flirted with the defensive tackle, kind of rotational defensive tackle out of UCF in the winter. I think that's the kind of guy you're looking at when it comes to bringing somebody in to just take snaps. You could also have an Armando Blunt play inside at times, a Messidor play inside at times, a Ruben Bain play inside at times, even a Hayden Lowe, man. We saw him in person. The guy's giant. So there's guys that can kind of play inside at times. You hope Artavius Jones continues to emerge and take steps. You hope Dante Simpson is ready to maybe give you what Justin Scott gave you last year as a true freshman. I think that's in the table, or on the cards. On the table in the cards. I think that's on the table in the cards to potentially play inside this year in a limited role. You don't want defensive tackles playing too much as true freshmen, but this guy's been giving us problems all spring, beating first, second team offensive linemen with his quickness and his size. That's a very positive element. I don't know if that directly had anything to do with Horton leaving. Horton's a 3-year player. This is the first year for Dante Simpson, but certainly Dante Simpson got a lot of action this spring with Horton on the sidelines, and he made the most of it. He really, really has improved his standing as a player based on what he did in the spring.
Johnny Lagoon, good to see him back in the comments, man. I know he's been in Japan, so he was DMing me yesterday. Said he was mad he couldn't be on here live. So good to see him back in the comments here. Appreciate everyone who's on us. Over 1,000. Hit that like and subscribe to the channel. If you're just joining us, talk Zaquan Patterson, his departure at the start of the show. We've been talking about Josh Horton at defensive tackle, and look, we're not going to speculate on who's next because that's what I'm sure everyone's question is, but yeah, we do expect some more. So
we got a comment here from Roger Allen, some discussion. Scuba Steve also mentioning potentially Miami pursuing Daryl Jackson. Look, I mean, he's not in the portal, so we'll see what happens there. I know that the last time that there was flirtation between Daryl Jackson and Miami, him potentially leaving FSU, that was real when that happened. Ultimately,
I would take him in a heartbeat.
Well,
in a heartbeat. And I know people in the comments have a lot to say about him. That's an NFL defensive tackle right there, even after everything that's happened the last couple of years. So I'll take him in a heartbeat, like I said.
Yeah, first round pick, second round pick, according to an NFL person that me and Pete talked to. Actually, you weren't even in that conversation.
Yeah, well, the NFL guy that I talked to also says top 3 round pick without a doubt.
And these are actually two different people.
Yeah,
so,
2 different people.
Yeah, listen, Daryl Jackson, if he wants to come back, roll out the red carpet
with open arms, man.
Yeah, I don't care one bit about anything that's happened with him. He's a defensive tackle. You don't expect those guys to, say all the right things, do all the right things at all times.
Andrew's been on point with the comments today. He said D tackles are a little crazy. It's part of their makeup.
Yeah, we need impact players, right? So I think we've done a good enough job recruiting that we have young players that can serve as depth that have a lot of ability. These guys we recruited that are getting paid a lot because they're big recruits. So therefore, if they play in a depth role early in their careers, yeah, they're young, but they're getting experience to eventually start. You're already paying them. That to me makes sense. And when Mario first got here, you were plugging holes with, guys for depth purposes, a 6-foot defensive tackle here, kind of a journeyman linebacker here, just because you needed to fill spots. I don't think Miami's at that point right now. Maybe defensive tackle, like we talked about. But listen, if you get this guy, forget the 4th defensive tackle being a rotational guy, you have a star, an impact player. So even though
that's what I'm saying with guys that we aren't thinking about, that aren't on the market now. It changes you take that and it probably changes what the room looks like right now.
And I've said on this show and on the board, I said, I don't expect Miami to go after like a Simeon Barrow type defensive tackle, which means top of the market kind of guy. But if a situation like this comes aboard where he goes in the portal saying, I want to go back to Miami, I always wanted to go there, something like that, you take him and adjust your budget. So I don't know if we're not going to be, I don't think we're going to be going after every single top defensive tackle, but if something were to land in Miami's lap, 100%. I don't know this as solid info. I haven't asked about this, but just me kind of sitting back. Yeah. And remember, his best friend was Josh Farmer, who's now on his way to the NFL, probably top 2 round pick in the NFL draft in a week or so. So that tie to Tallahassee, that he had is gone. He just went through a miserable season. You know, I'm sure he has no respect for Coach Norville, because who would? So I think Miami, Daryl Jackson, if that ever became a possibility, and again, I'm not reporting anything because I've not heard this, I've not asked about this. I saw the reports. It could be true.
I hope this is like the
asked.
Carson Beck thing, the Carson Beck clip that we put out before he committed.
Well, that one we had info. That was me hinting. This one I'm being totally candid. I have not talked about Daryl Jackson other than what I've read, the same thing you guys have read. I will ask and get to the bottom of it. Obviously he's not in the portal, so you know, I don't know. But if he jumps in the portal, listen, that'd be my first call for sure. He's an impact player, and we need impact players. What's up with Bobby Washington from Q Irvin? He's hurt. He tore his patella right when he decided he was coming back to Miami and getting out of the portal, which was one of the most unfortunate situations you could ever see.
Saw him walking around the sideline with good spirits the other day.
That's good. I mean, you know, we had high hopes for the guy. The guy's super fast, talented, long, athletic. He played a little bit last year. I think he was going to play more this year. He has a new defensive coordinator with Heatherman, who I think fits what, you know, wants to develop guys like that. He just has to heal, and guys heal different. So, you know, we'll just kind of see. Patella's a tough injury.
He's a freak though. So if someone can do it, I'd bet that he has a good chance of doing it.
Yep, absolutely. Seth, so what do you got on any of this? You've been quiet over there at the IPF. I know you got your playbook there. You're going over coverages. What do you got going on?
The transfer portal right now, it's they know what they're doing. They have their board, but it's not. I don't have that much scoop right there right this second. You know, they're probably seeing who's actually going to leave before they start telling us what they're trying to go after. That's about all I got for the transfer portal. I don't have that much. I got practice news. I have player news. Transfer portal, not there yet.
Let me ask you. So you went to practices. I saw you out there. You've been around the program this spring. What are some big picture takeaways? I saw you on the sideline as well in the spring game. What are some of the big picture takeaways that you have from the spring based on what you saw?
So I really liked, number one, I really liked the improvement of nickel QB from the day one that, you know, in spring to the end of spring. You know, I know you and I had spoken about in the beginning of spring, like we were, you know, he was having a rough time. We were like laughing, like, you know, the guy, he's 18, he should be in high school. Like the light bulb's going to come on, just needs time. And he did it faster than I thought, because by the end of spring, you could see he was calmer. He wasn't holding the ball as long. He was making some great throws. So that made me happy to see that, you know, to see him come out like that. Malachi Tony, a guy, you guys have talked about it. He's very impressive. And I don't think they really wanted to show him anything on the spring game. They were trying to show nothing, but he still found a way to show that this guy's going to play. He's the real deal. Then the other things I noticed, you know, the defensive side of the ball, it was really hard you can't judge really almost anything on the defensive side of the ball, because we really didn't have a quarterback throwing to anybody. You know, you could judge the offensive line, which we already know what we have. You could
listen, I don't think you have a quarterback who was consistently pushing the ball downfield, like
correct,
testing them.
Not at all. Yeah. So that
aside
part
from
was hard.
Nickel was throwing that thing.
He was throwing, and you could see
with mixed results. He was throwing it.
You could see Lucas was covering his guy like a glove, and he's huge. You could see certain things, but overall, it was very hard to see. But what you could see, what I did see, wasn't even the scrimmages, was during the practices, and how Heatherman is dove full force into the linebackers. He's all over those linebackers. And the other thing, the two drills that were new that I hadn't seen before was one I think I mentioned was the communications drill, which they were doing daily, and I'm calling it the gap defense drill. I don't know, they probably call it something different, but you have the full offensive line, you have your defensive line, the linebackers, and you have your running backs, and it's defense all in, filling gaps, being physical, and there were a lot of fights coming out of that drill, and so that was nice to see, because we didn't do that before. So I think that seeing that and seeing all the defensive side coaches have a lot more energy than they were before, and it's not a knock to the other guys, it's just these guys are younger, especially our defensive corner is very young. And I'm looking forward to fall. I want to see how when we have Beck throwing the ball and seeing really how far the defense progresses. And I think that's also, the same thing with the Horton and the Patterson and whoever else might transfer. These guys, the coaching staff knows what they want. They don't want to be jerks they're trying to be looking out for the players. This isn't a situation where they're saying, "Hey, we don't like you, get the hell out." They're having conversations with these guys. Hey, listen, this is where you're on the depth chart. In those two players, you miss spring. You know, maybe there's other options out there, and they make the decisions for themselves. It's not like they're not trying to screw over these guys. They're not giving up on these guys. But I know that Mario feels, like we said before, we are close, and they want to. Every spot is valuable to this team, and they know what they need to get to the next level, and they feel that this is it. Last year, our defense is our defense. We had Cam and the best offense, but didn't happen. But this year, I think that you have a situation where you really can have. Maybe you don't have the number one offense, but you're going to have top 15 offense, maybe even top 10 offense. And what can the defense bring to the table? And now you're providing depth. You're bringing in the right players. You have the young guys. You're bringing portal guys. It has the potential. We'll see what happens in the fall.
Seth, we got almost 1,200 on right now live. This is the most we've had on live in a few weeks. I call it the Cougar effect.
The Cougar effect, yeah.
So always appreciate you joining us, man. Like I said, those who don't know Seth, if you've been to any practice, if you've been to anything that is sort of behind the velvet rope, he's going to be there. One of the best supporters of the Canes, and more tuned in than anybody. Aside from maybe his son Josh is more plugged in. Other than that, I think it's him. So Seth, man, appreciate you joining us, and we'll get
appreciate
you back
you guys.
on soon.
Thank you, Seth. Appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Pete. Always love having Seth on. So let's talk about before we talk about basketball. When we talk about the official sponsor of Canes Insight basketball coverage.
Yeah, Rees Law. So let me pull up the site here. But this is my dad, guys. If you guys need a estate planning attorney, so trusts, wills, probate, corporate law, he's your man. AreeslawPA.com. Get a free consultation. You can set it up online or do it in person as well. His office is there off Coral Way in the Gables, headed towards Brickell. So check it out there, 2103 Coral Way. Again, AreeslawPA.com, the sponsor of all Canes Hoops content here on Canes Insight.
Yep, Canes Cast asked for baseball. We'll get the baseball after basketball. We'll get all of it here on the Tuesday show. We'll cover all aspects. We won't talk about, but Trish Cullip, great job. Top 5 portal class for women's basketball. Shout out to Canes Connection. Shout out to Trish. Shout out to her whole staff for putting together quite a squad. That's going to be an exciting team to watch. We'll cover that more as we get closer to the season. But looks like women's basketball, they want to return to the Elite Eight. They want to return to relevance. They were solid last year. They want to go to the next level, obviously be a tournament team. And they took a huge step in that direction. Top 5 portal class, according to everybody. So excited about that. But Pete, basketball, a lot to get to. Let's go through all of it.
Yeah, so we'll start. Listen, the Dante Allen commitment yesterday, which we'll get to shortly here, but we'll start with the news of the day, which is Miami hiring their associate head coach. So I think we've heard for a while now, pretty much since the news happened for Jay Lucas Jay Lucas is a guy who is experienced because he's been a lot of places, but he hasn't been a head coach. He needs to bring someone with him who maybe hasn't been a head coach, but has seen just about everything. Charlton Young, Miami native, guy who was associate head coach at Missouri the last 3 years. So the second in command to Dennis Gates. They've been to the tournament the last couple years. Really, really solid, program they've run there. And the SEC was one of Coach Hamilton's head guys at Florida State. As well, was a big recruiter on Matthew Cleveland. But this is a hire here that I would expect. And we mentioned last week, watch out for him to potentially bring Marcus Allen with him. Missouri transfer, kid from Miami, played at Norland, brings you that defensive versatility on the wing that you're looking for, really good size. And look, this is not a hire to land a Marcus Allen, but we see the emphasis on keeping these guys home locally, and it's paid dividends early on here, D.
Yeah, it's amazing because we never talked about this with basketball, right? This was always a football conversation, a baseball conversation. Now keeping players home in South Florida, keeping players home in Florida in general is the number one topic for for men's basketball at the University of Miami. I asked Jay Lucas a question about it in the press conference. I think my first ever question at a press conference. Usually I just chill at all that, those kind of things. But I want to know because I was curious because that was weird to me. And he said, look, in his opinion, Florida had the best players in the country for the year to come, the recruiting year. So he thinks kind of the balance of talent has shifted more towards Florida in basketball, which is unusual for a state that's so dominant in football and in baseball. But that's just the way of the world right now. Of course, we all know about the boozers, but there's more. Talk about, a Marcus Allen, and how about another Allen that we could talk about right now. But we'll talk about him in a second.
So and this is I think this was really interesting. I don't know if I've seen this, especially in the modern age. How about this? Missouri basketball posting after 3 special seasons together, building the Mizzou program. We wish Coach CY, that's his nickname, the best of luck as he takes a new position. Thank you, Coach. So you don't see this, man. Really classy move by Missouri, I gotta say.
Yeah. Now, and before I even shift to Dante Allen, I want to talk about Coach Young. I'm excited about the addition, local ties, the experience, the fact that something like this shows that this guy's good as far as culture building, bringing people together, not being a divisive figure. Clearly, they got a lot of love for him. They didn't have to do this. Like you said, they don't always do this. He's a veteran, and the guy looks young, but how old is he? He's a little
early 50s.
Yeah, man. So he's been around. Bring some experience to the bench. Jay Lucas, someone who, he's been around the game his whole life, is a first-time head coach.
He was a head coach at Georgia Southern from 2009 to 2013. So he has been a head coach as well,
which is something we talked about, right? So it's kind of 2 boxes checked, which is you wanted Jay Lucas to bring in somebody who has been a head coach, who can kind of help him with some of the big things, I'm sure, but also some of the small things that you don't even think about, right, until you've been in the seat and done the job, right? He can help him with those situations, and then also the local presence as well. So I love how this is coming together for basketball because, and we talked about this, Pete, the last couple of years with Miami, it just felt like just grabbing guys and just doing things to do them. Kind of like how Manny was towards the end of Manny's tenure, or really from the beginning, quite frankly, where it was Manny would just kind of get guys. I got to get this guy. I got to get that guy, trying to add talent in a desperate fashion, as opposed to saying, this is exactly what we want. This is what we want to focus on. We're going to go in this direction consistently. Jay Lucas, the staff between Moran and Young, clearly you're talking about keeping it local, getting guys that are respected basketball minds, and getting guys that jibe. And you've seen that consistently. We'll see in the GM hire. I know that's still kind of, that hasn't been announced yet, right?
No, not yet. There was a staff retention that we broke that story yesterday. Jeff Dyer, who has been the director of basketball ops since 2021. So this is a guy who he's been around in D. I've mentioned this a few times. I wanted there to be something left from the Larrañaga era. I understand that you talk about coaching. That's not always a fit. It was going to be hard to bring a coach in from that era. But I think retaining Jeff Dyer, from everything I've heard, was a really big part of putting some of these, that Elite Eight, Final Four roster together. Look, the last couple of years, I think, kind of got out of hand for everyone with the NIL. Obviously, Coach Larrañaga has been pretty open about that, but this is a guy behind the scenes who no one understands how it works at Miami better than Jeff Dyer was a GA here from 2014 to 2016 as well. So you need someone who knows the back workings of how you can get things done here. That's a good. I'm not sure if he's going to retain that same title as director of basketball ops, but expect him to be heavily involved behind the scenes. And I said it. We say it with football. How many people are involved? How many people have certain roles? Right. It's an important retention there with Jeff Dyer. But let's get into Dante Allen.
Just one thing on that with Dyer. There's institutional knowledge too. So it's like, even though the players are all gone, which is unique, right? Even in football, usually you have most of the roster back, or in baseball, now you have just like a whole new roster. So you don't necessarily need to have institutional knowledge on the players that you're going to be coaching, but you're a new coach coming in, just working with university, right? Working with the local high schools, just things that, like, if you haven't done it yet, there might be little details that you are just not up on. Someone like Dyer, who's been here and been in this community, at this institution, can help with those things as well. So I think that just overall just helps with continuity. I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yep, without a doubt. And would expect, like I said, some more hires to happen this week. I'm gonna drop a little bit of an El Pete bomb in a second here, D, as a treat to our 1,300 plus who are on here. Remember to hit that like and subscribe. But let's get into Dante Allen, man. What a pickup yesterday, and this has been a priority for Jay Lucas from day one when he took this job. Top 50 national player. I mean, he's ranked 41st on, I think, ESPN, 42nd on 247. So pretty consensus there with two of the top, ranking sites. A winner, a dog. You're talking about a big guard, a combo guard. He can handle it. I'm going to play some highlights here in a second, but a guy who can use, obviously, son of Malik Allen, former Heat forward, assistant coach now. Big frame, man. I think this is a guy who's gonna continue to grow, and he's got some good muscle on him. But once he gets in that weight room, I think he's going to turn into a man pretty quickly. And his mentality, when you watch him play, the fiery energy that he plays with, we've been missing that the last couple of years here. Norchad Omier was that for Miami, but you're bringing a team full of these sort of personalities here. And as I pull up the clips, D, I wanted to get your thoughts on him as well, because I know you're a fan of his game.
Yeah, I was watching a ton of video on this guy once it became clear he was coming. By the way, if you're not on CanesInsight.com, 7 million posts and counting, Pete, Trenton Breeze, they have been breaking everything on this team. In some cases, weeks before it happens, like you saw with Jay Lucas, Dante Allen. I mean, there's really been there's been no surprises here on CanesInsight.com. Pete and Trenton have been completely dominating that coverage. You want to check that out on CanesInsight.com. 7 million posts and counting, all free for you.
And by the way, these are EYBL Peach Jam clips. So this is like the highest level of AAU competition. As you watch these guys play, this is a well-coached, this is an Andrew Moran coach team. They're playing ball the right way. This is not ISO AAU ball necessarily. These guys are running the floor the right way, finding the lanes, playing good team ball. But you see, I mean, he just gets downhill, man. And these clips are all him in transition, so we'll see more here. But look at him run the floor, man, just diving to the hoop.
Yeah, by the way, the Knight Riders team, some pretty good players on that team, right?
Yeah.
Boozers and others.
Look at this. I mean, just getting right to the cup.
Watching him. So first of all, I'm not saying he's this guy. This guy's a top 5 pick and an NBA All-Star. I just think he looks like him physically. He kind of looks like Deron Williams, just the way he looks, size-wise, and just his face. He just appears like him. But in terms of comparing him to some college players, we with Divine, who was one of our favorites, we lost kind of a physical guard, a guy that finished well around the basket. I think you can get some of that here with Allen. I remember watching
with more size.
I remember watching his dad, same number, same. He went to Villanova. Of course, Allen was committed to Villanova, now going home to Miami. His dad is an assistant coach with the Miami Heat, so this is a local player, as we discussed. The thing that jumps out to me is, if you go back, Pete, to last year, right? Me and you talking about the season and things. We were excited about certain things. There were certain things we were concerned about. The number one thing we were concerned about was Nigel Pack, Jaleel Bethea, Jalen Blackman. Who's physical there? Who's going to play defense? Who's going to be a gritty guard? Everybody there wants to score and do their thing. Who's going to defend? Who's going to stop the ball? Who's going to play with any kind of physicality? Fast forward to April 15, 2025. You got Dante Allen, 6'4", 220, physical guard, likes to play defense. True Washington, 6'4", about 200 pounds, one of the better defensive players in his conference on a team in New Mexico that made it into the tournament. Trey Donaldson, another tournament player, 6'3", 200 pounds, somebody who was a safety in high school, has that physical style on offense and defense. So you brought in 3 guards that are really about the same size. I think Dante Allen's probably the biggest of these guys, but they're all around the same height. They all have some physicality to them. They all bring a certain mentality. So if you're Jay Lucas and you go to the press conference and you say, we are going to be a defensive team, it starts at the point of attack right there with the guards. And now you have 3 guards who are all kind of similar and bring a similar mentality to the position, which is, to me, the total opposite of what you had last year with Pack, Bethea, and Blackman.
And the aspect of almost every one of these pickups is they have been parts of winning teams, winning programs. This is a guy in Allen who, before he was at Montverde this year, was at Riviera Prep, won a state title there, was their first state title, you know, a smaller, newer school in Miami. So a guy who has been the alpha dog on winning teams. And look, in their younger years, man, there was some talk from people who watched these games and said, look, the Boozer brothers have a lot of the hype. Alex Lloyd, who signed shooting guard with Florida. But a lot of people who watched this team when these kids were younger would have told you that Dante Allen was kind of like the motor, the driving force, of the Night Riders program. So,
did you coach this kid, by the way? Is he one of those kids you coached?
No, he wasn't. But that was, I did have the opportunity to coach the Boozers when they were like in 3rd, 4th grade. So that was, again,
set the foundation.
I set the foundation. But no, man, this was a really nice pickup, and someone who, like I said, I think has some growth potential too. Wouldn't surprise me to see him, grow another inch or two. And man, he can handle the ball a little bit. He can play off the ball. Solid shooter, and I think that stroke will continue to come along. But defensively, you see his mentality defensively as well. He's tough, he's long, and really excited about this pickup. I think looking forward now, the biggest things that I would say that would be the focus would be wing length and shooting from the outside, because still want to see some more of that. Chris Bell from Syracuse was on campus yesterday. Not sure if he's wrapping up his visit today. I think Miami is very much in the picture there from what I understand. So we'll see what happens there. About a 40% career 3-point shooter, averaged like 10 points a game last year, averaged 12 points a game the year before. And it's interesting because when he played Miami earlier this year, and Miami, believe that was the game Miami actually won against Syracuse in the ACC, but played against Miami, and he was a little frustrated that game. And a former Miami player that I was at the game with kept telling him, man, you're supposed to be starting, man. You're supposed to be starting, because he was coming off the bench. He was a 6th man in that game. He kept telling him, you're supposed to be starting, and he kept looking over and saying, I know. And I think the recruiting,
planting the seeds.
I think the recruiting was started then. So yeah, man, I think that would be a huge addition. We mentioned Marcus Allen, not much of a shooter at this point of his career, but that defensive versatility and toughness that you're looking for on that side of the floor, and big time upside with him, right? I think as his jump shot comes along, his offensive game will also progress. So I think you land Allen and Bell. This is a really good looking roster, man. This is a really, really good looking roster. And you still have a lot of pieces to fill out here. You have, I guess, 5-6 guys now on the team. Still got to add some more here.
Yeah. What I liked about both of the wings we're looking at, watching Bell this morning. Yeah. I remember him 2 years ago getting a little bit of hype. It's kind of like Renew, they were projected to have really good years this year. A little disappointing. That leads to them going in the portal. Now you hope to kind of recapture the magic. Both of those guys, though, they don't need the ball, which is something I think this team really could use. It's just guys that do not need the ball. One thing about going back to Allen, Dante, he moves very well without the ball. Even though he's a guard, he played with the Boozers, so those guys had the ball quite a bit, and he's used to playing off. So the fact that he's with, a guy like Trey Donaldson, he's going to be able to play off him, or even Renew, who is the guy who a lot of the offense runs through when he's in. He can play off those guys. It's not like he's got to pound the ball to be effective. The shot, it's hard to tell from highlights. It looks fine, but that's something I want to see is he going to be able to catch and shoot effectively? Because that's something he will have to do, and that's really a question I think for all three of those guards. They all have nice size. They all seem to want to play defense and be physical, but are they going to be able to catch and shoot consistently? Neither of the two transfer guards had particularly high shooting percentages from three. They could make them, but they weren't like 39, 40%ers. And Allen, there's inconsistency questions on his shot coming out. So are they going to be able to shoot just adequately so they can space the floor, catch and shoot when the other guy has the ball? That's something to keep an eye on.
So a couple more things here on the basketball front. Go ahead.
No, Jacoby said it. Smash that like button, like and subscribe to the show. Appreciate everybody listening. We got 1,500 on. If you are not part of this already, subscribe to the show. We are on every single day with exclusive info. We talk about basketball. Pete's had the basketball scoop on or Trenton Breeze or both. Every single step of the way, it has been kind of comprehensive domination of basketball from those two guys, starting with the Jay Lucas hire, first reported by Pete about a month before it became official. So please, if you're a fan of the show, you like what you're hearing, you want to stay plugged into the Canes, there's nowhere else to be. Like and subscribe to the show and sign up for CanesInsight.com for free. 7 million posts and counting. #1 Canes community on the planet. That's info's there as well. All over the place. And, while we're talking about these things, we're talking about players. We're talking about adding players. We're talking about adding players in the portal for football. We're talking about basketball. We're about to talk about baseball. If you want Canes athletics to thrive, the best way to do it, the most direct way, make sure the players are paid more than the other schools want to pay them. CanesConnection.com/CIS. Sign up with that link. If you sign up with that /CIS link, you are now able to interact with me, ask questions directly off the podcast, off the board, in ways I can answer with a little more candor because I don't have Gators and Knowles trying to screenshot the picture. So sign up for Canes Connection. Any level if you use that CanesConnection.com/CIS link, you get access to those Zooms. And at the same time, you're not getting the most exclusive coverage and becoming basically an insider. You are contributing to the cause. You are part of the solution making this happen for Canes Connection. So sign up for CanesConnection.com. Shout out to CL Smooth. I saw him in the chat. He signed up the other day. Appreciate everybody who jumps aboard and helps move this thing forward because, again, this is a team effort. You can actually impact the product on the field. There's no other sport where the fans can make a difference. This is one of them. So anyways, Pete, back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Drop the link in there so people can check that out. So a couple more things on basketball. One, I posted something yesterday on the board about this, but expect the Euro market is open for Miami and expect Miami to be active there. We've talked about of course the Bosnian Bulldog Harun Zedno, but from what I understand, there's another name out there. I can't quite pin the exact name down, but keep your eyes open for that. Potentially sooner rather than later in terms of a Euro popping for the Canes here. And then this is the bit of a bomb I said I would drop here, and it's speculative potentially, but do not be shocked if the Boozer brothers end up at different schools.
Whew, I didn't know you were going there. I didn't know you were ready to drop that one.
I've heard enough speculation. Not saying it's happening, but I think that's something that's on the table. And listen, I'll let you guys speculate on the other part of it, but yeah, that's what I'll say.
It's funny, man. I have my kids are in school and there's a lot of twins, right? I guess now with IVF and stuff, there's more twins. So there's 7 sets of twins in the school, and part of the rule of the school is they got to separate the twins. It's I guess it's part of the social development. You got to separate the twins. So could we see a separation? Who knows? Pete just dropped the bomb on him from the top rope. So we'll let that one percolate a little bit.
Kevin Dennis says we're getting the short one, huh? He's 6'4". He's a bigger point guard. He's a good size. Not saying it's him, but
hey, Hassan, appreciate you. Yeah, Toledo Mudhead, sure. Shout out to the glass capital of the world up there in Toledo, Ohio. And yeah, man, we appreciate you signing up for Canes Connection. Remember, use that CIS link so you can get access to the Zooms and ask questions directly that I might not be able to answer here and give you a little more candor, a little more exclusivity, a little more insider feeling. Because if you're contributing, if you're a booster, you're an insider, right? That's the way to be one of those is sign up for CanesConnection.com/CS. Appreciate you, Hassan.
I will say, D, I've never seen so much speculation about two guys who have been signed with another school for months, man. It is pretty funny, but it's fun stuff.
Yeah, look, I mean, the truth is, if we had this setup a year ago, they're probably here, probably both of them, right? If we had Jay Lucas earlier with Moran and all these guys, probably have him earlier. So, what I'm hoping for is this thing is built to last.
Right.
And it's a situation where the next set, I don't think you're going to get twins that are both top 25 players in the country, but the next great players locally decide to come to the University of Miami, and you don't have to worry about poaching them from another school they signed with.
Well, and I think when Jay Lucas came in here, that's what everyone immediately thought, wow, he's going to get the boozers. And as he's continued to add pieces, it's like, well, yeah, the boozers would be an incredible pickup, but it's not that you don't need them. I mean, not you want them 100,000%, but like you aren't banking your hopes on them coming in terms of the success of this program next year and moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. It's different dynamic, but we'll see how this thing goes, man. I didn't expect you to drop that bomb on us.
I mean, listen, I'm just going to throw it out there. This is not me reporting it's happening by any stretch, right? But we talk about rumors all the time on the football side. Why not?
Hey, I love it. I mean, look, how much excitement is there around Canes basketball? I don't think since the Final Four there's been this much excitement about the program. And me personally, and this happens sometimes when there's a coaching tenure that goes sideways. In L's case, it just ran out of steam. Obviously, the best coach in Miami Hurricanes basketball history. There's no number two. Maybe Leonard Hamilton, distant second. But, when it ends badly, which is, pretty much every coaching tenure does, even guys like Bobby Bowden and Joe Paterno, this is how these things tend to go. You want the opposite of what you just had. And I am very much looking forward to seeing defense and consistent effort, right? And guys playing unselfishly. Maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe that's just us speculating. But I really, truly appreciate, and this is not just me just trying to color it in retrospect, because we talked about this on the front end, trying to build a team. This is a team that they're trying to build. They're trying to build guys to play roles. They're trying to bring in guys that are tough, that are unselfish. It's not just who has the highest PPG on their stats or who has the highest recruiting ranking. It is guys that want to play the right way, that want to play their role. Even a guy like Renew, yeah, there's questions with his game as far as how do you build around a guy that's basically a 5 on offense and a 4 on defense, right? That doesn't shoot. So those are legitimate questions about his game. But one thing about Renew, when you watch him, this guy's all about winning, all about basketball.
Well, and again, we keep mentioning this in some respect, but the teams that have been put together the last couple of years have just been, you got to pick up guys to fill the spots. It may not necessarily be the best fit, but you don't know how it's all going to come together. These guys a lot of them have played together. They know each other's games. So I don't think that transition is going to be as difficult as it normally would be when you're putting together 13 new players on the team.
Yeah, and then Morant coached Allen.
Yeah.
So
coach all these, Coach Donaldson,
yeah,
Coach Reneau.
Yeah.
On the AAU circuit, it's
is it Renew or Reneau? I've been saying Renew.
I'm pretty sure it's Reneau.
That's what I thought,
Yeah.
But then I heard people saying Renew. Let us know in the comments if I'm screwing this up. I know Reneau that's how it's spelled. So we gotta get our pronunciations right. Maybe I get one on Pete this time. I think it's Renew. I could be wrong. But anyways, let's see how that one shakes out. But yeah, you're right. Another guy they coach. Was Marcus Allen a Knight Riders guy?
No, I don't think he was. Because he also was playing in Arizona he went to Compass Prep. Let me see what who he played for AAU.
By the way, we should also note that Dante Allen, on top of all the success he had at Riviera, on top of all the success he had with Knight Riders, he also was at Monteverde, which is the number one, right? Would you say it's the IMG of basketball right now? I know IMG has players too, but I mean, I think Monteverde is the top school for producing players at the moment. It's got to be.
Definitely. I mean, they're I guess the new school Oak Hill in a sense.
Right, Oak Hill. Yeah. And it's in Florida. So even though it's like IMG, right? Miami has built a pipeline with IMG. I think we could say that at this point. They haven't all worked out. Some of them have, some of them haven't. But the fact that it's close, you can bring those guys in on unofficials more than if they were in New York State or if they were in Arizona or if they're in California. So
Dennis Lopez says, I miss an Isaiah Wong type of player, a guy that can get a bucket anywhere on the floor. Let me tell you, Dante Allen is a bit bigger than Wong, but he's a combo guard there. Wong developed his jumper, I would say, later in his Miami career consistently.
Yeah. And one thing with Wong, physicality. I think to me, that's something that we neglect with Wong to talk about. We talk about getting the bucket. Yes, he can get a bucket. Look, Jalen Blackman could get buckets too, maybe more so at Stetson than at the ACC level, but Jalen Blackman could score. Jaleel Bethea at times could score. Nigel Paxter could score. I think the thing that we missed the most with Wong, to me, was he had some size on him. I mean, this guy was a strong guard. So you not only had the ability to get buckets, but you didn't sacrifice the strength. And in fact, you had more strength than the average team at that particular position. So that's one thing that when you look at Donaldson, when you look at Allen, when you look at the Nevada kid, Washington, these guys are strong. And I think that's something that we've been missing ever since we lost Wong.
Yep. 100%. So, man, almost 1,600 on here, D. The basketball talk really gets the people going these days.
It really does, man. And, obviously the portal's cooking. And listen, if you're a fan of the portal, we are going to be giving you portal coverage every single day. By the way, Pete, why don't you drop in a link to Group Chat Sports here? So me and Pete, right after we record this show, we record a show called Group Chat Sports. Just started it, really been cranking it up lately the last couple of weeks, which is a show which covers all the transactions in college football, whether it's recruiting, guys committing, transfer portal, not just Miami. It's a national show. But if you're a Miami fan, it's good to kind of keep, hey, this guy's here, this guy's there, this guy's available, this guy is off the board, committed here. For example, like Notre Dame just picked up a commitment from a wide receiver that's a fast slot receiver. How does that impact Braden Robinson, a major Miami target from Texas, 4-star slot receiver with 10.4 speed? How does that affect his recruitment? It was Miami and Notre Dame for him. Now Notre Dame just picked up a similar player. That probably, and I'll confirm this with sources today, but my guess is that's probably going to push him more towards the Miami side and give Miami a 4-star, 10.4 speed guy. So I've loved covering these other schools and these other transactions and learning just how these teams are being put together, because it gives you a much better sense of college football in general and also the University of Miami. So if you're not subscribed now, Pete's got the link right here in the chat. You just write Group Chat Sports onto YouTube and you'll find it. Go ahead and sign up, subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Support us. If you don't want to watch it, support us anyways. We'd appreciate the subscription. But I think it's good stuff. Quick little 5-minute, 6-minute videos that get you up to date on college football. And there's a lot to keep track of because the portal is about to heat up. It's already heating up, hot and heavy. We got a ton of questions from Kane's Cat about baseball. So let's get to baseball. Coming off a great series win against Duke, basically a really great week in general with the Bethune win, then the Duke series win. You're playing FAU, which has been a thorn in Miami's side, more so in Boca than at the Light, which is where we're playing them, but they're just a tough team. They've given us a ton of problems, and I think this is a pivotal game for the University of Miami, pivotal week. You got to win this game, then you got to win that Georgia Tech series against a white-hot Georgia Tech team with the best player in college baseball, potentially Drew Burris, if it's not Justin LeBron from Alabama. So, big week. Unfortunately, one of your top hitters, Derek Williams, seems like he might have hurt his arm and potentially could be out for a while, if not the season. You'll hope that does not go south on him because he's a great kid, great competitor. You want him to have success. But if that's the case, you need other outfielders to step up. Mikey Torres, highly touted player from Doral, super defensive player. Can he get going with the bat? Todd Hudson, who played some first base, originally an outfielder, is going to play more outfield for you and get that bat going. That's not a guy you want to lose. You don't want to lose anybody, but that's one that he can get hot and he can help your offense, which needed a boost. So tough news for the Canes in an otherwise very good week. This game against FAU is huge. Reese Lumpkin had a great start last week as your midweek guy. I think he's trending in the right direction after a couple bumps and bruises. So we'll see what happens with tonight. But I think you got to beat FAU and set yourself up for a chance to take 2 out of 3 from Georgia Tech at least. And then if you do that, now you're in a much, much stronger position to potentially get 500 or over in the ACC. Down the stretch, you got Notre Dame coming up. That's this very winnable series. A couple other series that you can win. That gives you a chance to make the tournament. If you make the tournament, you have, I think, accomplished not necessarily the goal. Miami's Omaha, but if you're Coach Arteaga, I think the regional is a realistic goal, and probably release some of the pressure off him. So we'll see what happens. Got to win today against FAU.
All right, Canes fans, appreciate everyone for tuning in today. It was a great turnout here on the show. Thank you all for commenting and interacting with us. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you aren't already.
Wait, before you go, don't forget to remind them, Miami Hurricane Team Store, MiamiHTS.com, right across the street from the Thesis Hotel. If you go to the game today, if you're at the light, right before, right after, just swing across to the Miami Hurricane Team Store right there next to the Thesis Hotel. Probably before. Harry will be at the game, I'm sure, selling his stuff. But use promo code INSIGHT20. You get 20% off your first item. I know my first item would be either that Sean Taylor or that Ed Reed, Mitchell and Ness throwback from the 2001 championship team. I mean, you can't do better than that. That's one of the coolest things that they've done in a while. Again, you use promo code INSIGHT20 either online or at the store. You get 20% off. If you're at the store, just say Canes Insight. They'll know what it is, and they'll hit that button for you. Shout out to Jeremy. Shout out to Harry. Shout out to the whole team at the Miami Hurricane Team Store.
All right, everyone. We will see you guys tomorrow.
Go Canes.
Go Canes.